The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and I've been gone for a week, but glad to be back. So thrilled to be here with you guys. We've got an amazing show for you this morning, but I'm going to be playing with Lux Blocks. It's just a thing. If you know me and if you've watched the show over the years, you know that I love me some Lux Blocks. So I'm going to be talking about those in just a second. But welcome back to the show. We are winding towards the end of the year, which means we got a lot of fun toys and a lot of things going on, and we got lots to talk about today. But we're live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. The date is Monday, December 16th. We're just a week away from Christmas, you guys, which means we're 2 weeks away from New Year's. So super duper fun. Our fabulous Chris Desmond is showing you some of the different ways that you can be watching the show, some of the different ways that you can listen to the show. For those of you who are listening in podcasts, we know that that's the vast majority of you, that you're catching us in podcasts. We work really hard to make that available to you, no charge. It's a free download wherever you get your podcasts. Chris is showing you on the screen. We're on Spotify, we're on iHeartRadio. Really, any place that you get podcasts and you can download them for free, that is where you will find us. It is a free download. It does mean that it comes with advertisements. And I hope that when you hear the advertisement air, that you will say, woohoo, they paid for me so that I don't have to pay. Because that's literally how we think of it. And we love the folks who sponsor our podcasts. But some of you like to listen when you're running or driving and you prefer to listen to it without advertising. We understand that. We get that. And you have said that you'd be willing to pay a little bit for the download to get it ad-free. You can do that by going to glow.fm/autism-live. When you do that, you get everything that we do at the Autism Network, and you get it directly in your inbox ad-free. It's $5 a month. It's actually cheaper when you subscribe for the entire year. But however that works for you, we love that a lot of you are listening for free. I love free. Free is good. I'm having a good time playing with my Lux Blocks here. We also love when you guys, it's the end of the year, and we love getting holiday messages from all of you. But I have to tell you that the thing that is like the best gift in the world that you can give us is to like, share, subscribe, and review. It's just as simple as that. If you like or comment on a video that we do, more people get to see it. And that means that what we're always working on is giving information and inspiration to the world, and in particular to the autism community. For us, that starts with individuals who are themselves on the spectrum, but it extends to everyone who loves them. And so we want to get to more people. And when you like, share, subscribe, or comment, it does get to more people. I kind of want to, do a face mask with this. The pieces that you're seeing that are black or shimmery are actually green here in the studio, but we do shoot on a green screen. But they do make black pieces. So pretty fabulous. Anyway, so it also, I always say, if you review us on any of your podcast platforms, it bumps us up in the algorithm and it gets to more people. So not only are you doing something fabulous for us that helps keep us on the air, but you're also helping other people to find us when you do that. So please like, share, comment, subscribe, and review. Reviews are fabulous. We love that. Okay, so what have I got in my hands here? These are, this is a structure made with a Lux Blocks, and I don't have a single one out. I don't really want to open this package, but I'm going to. If I can. I'm going to show you just a single Lux Blocks. They come in a couple of different shapes, but this is a building system, but it's not your typical building system. So this is just one. And of course, it's not a great, let me put it over the blue so you can see it. It's orange. And it's this building square that's heavily researched to give the builder lots of different opportunities to build. They're called Lux Blocks, and you can get them all kinds of places, even in bookstores, which I absolutely love. Bookstores have turned into the new toy stores. Has anybody else noticed that? This particular tube that I've got here, this is a Lux Blocks fidget flexor. The thing about Lux Blocks is that you can put these things together to create a panel, and you can make it static, right? Or it has the ability to bend. And that gives you so many more building possibilities that you can't do with other systems, right? So this fidget flexor, this is an example of one of the things that you can build with it. You see, I've got this thing, but I can expand it. I can't even tell you how exciting that is. And when kiddos, I've been in the room, when kiddos have played with these, and everybody builds these in a different way. It's so much fun. For years, I have kept these on my desk when we used to have meetings in person and people would come into my office, and something like this would be sitting on my desk, and sometimes just pieces. And I would watch as the people who were talking to me would find themselves drawn. These were adults I'm talking about, would find themselves drawn to the pieces, and they would start to build something. And I would see kind of how their logic worked, what they would build. But I've been in the room with kids on the spectrum, and when they get that you can snap the pieces together and you can do all kinds of things, ooh, amazing things happen. I will tell you that there are so many different things that this works on for kiddos. This is pure executive functioning in terms of having a plan, putting something together and have it come to fruition. That's executive functioning. It's problem solving, both simple and complex. But there is a fine motor thing to this that it takes a little bit of effort to snap the pieces together. It's not impossible by any stretch of the imagination, but it does require you to, have some hand-eye coordination. There's a specific way that the pieces go together and they snap together. It's a very satisfying ASMR snap when they go together. But I have seen kids who won't hold a pencil, and the parent says, oh, my child is not going to be able to do that because it's a fine motor skill. But my friends, when you give them something motivating enough to want to work on and build the muscle, they will come, right? Just like, you build the baseball field out in Iowa, they will come. Our kids, I have seen kids who could not hold a pencil, could not do a pincer grasp, work through and begin to snap these together and grow the muscles in their hands so that they could actually hold the pencil. So because it's that level of rewarding. So they come in lots of different kits. And because motion is a part of what it can do, it's really endless. There are tons of videos online that show you, ideas to jumpstart you. But a lot of times our kids, they don't need it jump-started for them because they can just visualize it themselves. But if you have a kiddo that needs a little help and support, all kinds of videos online to show you. I don't know if you can see that by moving this, the wheels are moving. But of course, there's rubber bands that help the wheels to move, and my hand keeps being on the rubber band so that I can demo it for you. So many different things that our kiddos can do with these. This particular one, there are many different kits. This is called the Neon Genius, and it focuses on motion. So it's got the rubber bands and the wheels in it. You can buy just a starter box and have a bunch of just pieces to create fabric, or there are very specific kits to create a specific shape or specific thing. As I said, this is that fidget flexor. Last year we featured, I can see him over there, Bubblegum, the Triceratops. You can make dinosaurs with these. And there are kits with instructions, but sometimes we like our kids to just off-road it and have a kit and be able to do whatever they want to do with it. I just want to tell you, I love these toys. I love that the genesis of this, for the creators of this, they really were looking at different people in time and what they had in common. Like, what did Albert Einstein play with as a child? What did Frank Gehry play with as a child? What did Frank Lloyd Wright play with as a child? And they discovered that there were very specific building blocks that they played with that helped shape the way they looked at the world and the way they problem solved and what they went on to go and do with their lives. It is never too early to start working on flexing your child's mind and building it for them to be able to create. So many of you write in and say, we just don't know the creativity piece. How do you teach creativity? Well, you start with possibilities and play. And so the inventor of Lux Blocks said, what if I were to create a new block for this generation? A block that could go together in different ways. And listen, there's lots of building systems that are out there that, we respect and admire and revere, but he was looking to do something different. And he came up with Lux Blocks, and it's a really powerful tool for our kids. I have never yet seen a kid on the spectrum of all different abilities and all different ages not love this and sit down and do something with it. Even if it's as simple as putting together a piece of fabric. I have here I've got this other structure here. If you can just put together a piece, these all have little wooden dowels in the middle to help them to make them more sturdy. But you can just make a piece of fabric. Like I said, I would keep this in my office, and I would just make a sheet of this. So it was just a bunch of them put together, and then watch the way people would fold them up, put them together. Did they make a circle? Did they make a cube? What did they do with it? Did they include motion in it, or did they make it so that it was static? And it's just fascinating. So these are Lux Blocks. They are available, and it's spelled a very specific way. So it's LUXBLOX. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them in most major booksellers. Go visit their YouTube channel and see the things that kids do with these. It's just amazing. I think it's a must under the tree, and I love them. Love, and I don't use that word willy-nilly. Just love them and want to say thanks. I also want to say that Lux Blocks has been amazing in supporting Autism Network and Autism Live and helping us every Christmas. They are just so diligent about giving us kits that we can share with the community. We're going to be giving some of the kits that they gave us this year to some of the autism centers in the area so that kids can play with them. And so we want to thank Lux Blocks for always being incredibly generous with these amazing toys. I love this fidget. Love it, love it, love it. I could play with this for hours, and I will. So I'll put them down. But Lux Blocks, fabulousness. And they come in different colors too. Did I show you? Like, it's not just ones. These are pink and white. It's unisex. This is for boys and girls. STEM toy. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. So thrilled with that. I also want to talk about our jargon of the day. Then we are going to do a parent to parent today, and we're going to talk about my checklist for the end of the year for any autism parent. I know sometimes it feels so overwhelming. You got so much to do. So we're going to go over the checklist and kind of prioritize and give ourselves a roadmap for success in 2025. But let's take a look at our jargon of the day first. Dun, da, da, da. It is antecedent. And we haven't done this in a while because this is important. This is an important word. It's one of those $5 words that people start to use when we're talking about autism. And if it wasn't a part of, it's a very common word, but I just don't think people use it in regular English language. So antecedent is a model or stimulus for later developments. Okay, who cares? Who cares, Merriam-Webster? Who cares? You should care because it's really, really important. Let's go on to our working definition here. An antecedent, it's what happened before. And the power in that, whenever you or I are doing something, something happens, right? And we engage in a behavior. And if we like that behavior, great. If we want to have that behavior happen again and again and again, we might ask ourselves, well, what spurred that behavior into happening and how can we make that happen again, right? And often it's that something very specific happened, that's the antecedent, and it caused that behavior that we want to see more of. Great. So we would want to do more of that then. But the opposite is true also. if we're seeing a behavior that is challenging, that's not helping us, not helping someone we love, and we go, gosh, we always think, okay, I want to take control of the behavior, and that's a little bit of a misnomer, because often, how can you really control a behavior? What are you going to duct tape people to the wall? No, we don't do that. But if you look at, well, what precipitated that behavior, what happened before, and then you say to yourself, how did that cause that? And can I change that? The example that I love to give is that my son, I remember taking him when he was little to the doctor's office. We really needed the doctor's appointment. I don't remember whether it was for him or for me, but we needed it. And their TV was out. And they didn't have any magazines. And there were no toys. And it was before I had a smartphone, and there was nothing to do in this doctor's office. So what happens? My son got bored because he's a person. He was 3, but he's a person. You get bored. You got nothing to do. You're going to create something, right? So he started kicking the leg of the chair with his foot, and it made a nice sound. And not only that, now he had my undivided attention because I'm putting my hand on his leg and saying, stop that. Because the woman across the way is now watching, and she's looking at me like, well, you're a bad parent. You should get that under control, right? And now I'm freaking out and sweating, and I'm like, stop it. Stop it. Well, for my son, he's no longer bored. This is theater. This is better than Netflix, because mom's freaking out and the woman across the way is freaking out. And, I've got everybody's attention. So does he stop kicking the leg of the chair? No, he starts kicking it harder because he's a person and he needs some sort of stimulus, because to just sit there is boring, right? And I about had a meltdown in the doctor's office, and now I'm saying to him, because this is before I knew what I was doing, and I was like, stop it or we're going to have to leave. Oh, well, gee, do you think he wanted to leave the doctor's office? 100%. So now he's kicking the chair for all he's worth. Now, instead, what I learned over time is that I can go back in time and look at that and go, what happened? Oh, well, what happened before? He got bored. There was nothing going on, so he created something. My great-grandmother always used to say, idle hands are the devil's work, right? If kids don't have something to do, they're going to get up to something, and it's likely not to be good trouble, right? So looking at the antecedent, what happened before there was boredom? Can I change that? Do I have any ability to change boredom? And guess what? I absolutely do as a parent. My mom made me a zipper bag, and we would carry it with us. I had it in my purse. It was just a little thing. And it had all these zippers that were different pockets, and in each one was a little toy. He was really into wind-up toys, so there was the little wind-up monkey that you wound it up and it would do a backflip, right? So we would go someplace, and if we were waiting at a restaurant or we're waiting in the doctor's office, he would sit down in the chair, and I would not give him the bag. I would say, pick a zipper, and we would open it up, and he could take out the toy and he could play with it. Now, he may only play with it for 2 minutes, and then he would give me that toy back. I would put it in the zipper, and he would get to pick another zipper. It was like a surprise box, right? And he got to zip. He wasn't bored. We never had the kicking the chair thing again. So I can sit there and berate him and yell at him and try to control his leg. It was of no use to anybody, right? It wasn't effective, and it wasn't fair, and it didn't consider his needs as a person. He's a person. He deserves to not be bored. Right? Or I can bring the little zipper bag and help to entertain him. Could I do it without the zipper bag? Sure. If I feel well enough and I have the ability, then I can try to entertain him so that we don't get to the behavior that we don't want, which was caused by the boredom. So knowing what the antecedent is, so in the moment when it's happening, maybe not the most useful thing, right? In the moment, you want to be thinking about, like, how are we going to do this right now? And how are we going to keep everybody safe? But afterwards, asking yourself the question, so what did happen before, and how much control do I have of that? Going back to the other example, I love that a dear friend of mine who's a BCBA, and when her kids were little, she really wanted them to connect homework and doing homework with a pleasurable experience so that they would want to do their homework their whole lives. And so she hated Kool-Aid, but, nothing against Kool-Aid, but, some artificial colors and things and sugar, right? Maybe not the thing we always want for our kids, but her kids loved it. So she made a rule in her house that Kool-Aid is only present when you're doing homework. So her kids would come home and they would come right to the dining room table. She would set the pitcher of Kool-Aid on the table and it would stay there until they were done with homework. And her kids did their homework. The antecedent was that there will be Kool-Aid and as long as you're doing homework. And so they engaged in that behavior more and longer. They would do their homework because they wanted the Kool-Aid. So antecedents are important. Let's think of them and say, how do we use this to our advantage? And notice that in all circumstances, it's to the benefit of the individual. Like we're giving them something wonderful that they want to do to prevent a behavior that is of no use to them. So it's a really good strategy. And by the way, this doesn't just work with kids, this works with adults. And it doesn't just work with autism. This is a strategy for life. Antecedent. Change the antecedent and change the behavior. Okay, so we got through that. Let's now move on to our parent-to-parent talk today. And I hope we get through this in a timely manner because there's a lot here. I want to go through my year-end checklist for parents with kids, teens on the autism spectrum because I think sometimes we just get overwhelmed, right? There's so much to do on our to-do list. And I think that there are different points during the year when it's helpful to sort of check in and say, hey, what are we doing? And is it working? And what else do we need to be doing? And how important is that? And where in the hierarchy of important things do we have to do? Where are we going to put it? And it's different for everybody. That's why we got a checklist and we're going to talk through these. I'm not going to go through it fast because there's too much there. So let's go to our first one here. I think this is critical. We really want to look at health. And here are some questions on each one of these slides. I'm going to ask you some important questions. And then from there, we want to think about what's the next action that needs to be taken. So maybe for each one of these, you keep a pad of paper on your phone or whatever. And you, as we go through these, ask yourself what's the next action that needs to be taken on this. Because at the end, we're going to prioritize and put them all in order and come up with a plan for what to do with them. But here are some just basic questions. How is your child's general health? Do they need any appointments? Are you kicking your can right now as a parent because they haven't been for a regular checkup? They haven't been to the dentist? What are the things? What are the appointments? And that could be the next action that you need to take is scheduling an appointment. But I think the biggest thing here is to ask yourself, do you have any concerns? Sometimes we don't even know, like we have so much concern that it can paralyze us and we don't know what to do, which is why it's just so advantageous to think of it cleanly and go, what would be the next action that I could take? So if you see that your child, it's such a wide area, right? If you see that your child's having chronic diarrhea and you're worried about it, or you see that your child's teeth are coming in and they're crooked and it's just so overwhelming to think about, going to a dentist or an orthodontist, whatever it is, make a note for yourself, but ask yourself, if I was just going to take one action, what would it be? And it could be, it's just make an appointment with the pediatrician. It could be that simple to discuss whatever your concerns are. But so it's kind of like Cornell notes in the side over here. I want you to take a little note and go, health-wise, here's the next action that I would take. Whatever that would be for you, and realize it could be vastly, vastly different, right? But make a note of that. Okay, let's go on to the next one here, diet. Okay, so the questions that I want to ask you right now are, can your child eat a wide variety of foods and colors and textures? And if not, is that something that is of concern to you right now? It may not be. Let's make room for the idea that this may not be a panic moment for you. If your child is thriving and seems to be healthy, that may not be of concern. However, if your child is very restrictive with their colors or their textures, it might be something that you're concerned about. Is your child showing signs that they are reacting to some foods? Are you noticing that if your child eats something that we see a spike in behavior? That is not uncommon. Is there anything in particular that you're concerned about your child's diet? I'm going to be honest with you here that sometimes I will meet with a parent and they'll talk through a whole host of behavior. And then I will say, do you have any concerns about your child's diet? And they say, no, my child's diet is fine. And then I ask them more questions and I become concerned about their diet. Because let's put the fine point on this, that what you eat affects how you behave. I know this is like a really bizarre concept for some people, and they're like, no, it doesn't. I promise you it does. We have a saying that we like to say, garbage in, garbage out, right? So the level of food that you're eating and that you are eating has an effect on you and how you're doing, as it does on your child. It's not the be all end all, let's say that, but it can be a game changer. If you have allergies and there's something that you're reacting to, believe me, it can affect your mood, it can affect your sleep, it can affect how you're processing information, the rate at which you're learning. And we know studies have been done that are over a decade old that show that there is a correlation between pesticides in anyone's body and ADHD-like behavior. So when you guys talk about your child's ability to focus, which is all a part of learning, right? If there is a high level of pesticides in your child's body, they are less likely to be able to focus and learn. So for me, as a parent, that says to me that even if your child's focusing great, you might have a child and you're like, no, my child is fabulous and they're focusing great. But you say to me that they're eating a lot of pesticides. I'm wondering, could they be focusing even better? Are they Einstein and we're just not getting to it because there's a certain amount of pesticides? So, I want to encourage you to be thinking about your child really globally and be willing to consider, is diet a part of it? And ultimately, what we all want for our children is to be as healthy as possible and to have a good relationship with food, right? So too much of anything is not going to be great. There are so many different answers to the equation of diet and what constitutes healthy. It isn't one size fits all, but we like to think of children being able to eat a wide variety of textures and colors. I always would say to my son, let's eat the rainbow today. Let's eat as many colors as we can, because we want those colors from real food, not from artificial food colorings and flavorings. If there was one thing that I could encourage you to do that would be good for your health and your child's health in 2025, it would be to reduce the amount of pesticides in your diet and see if that has any kind of an impact on your child's ability to focus. What I love to say to you, let's all be completely pesticide free. I'm a realist, and it's not possible. We don't live in a society right now where we can be completely pesticide free, but we can all lower the amount of pesticides, and that makes a direct impact. My slides are kind of being covered by the Lex blocks. I'm going to move things around a little bit so we can see everything. But it's really personal. Food is personal. And the way you feed your child, we talk about this all the time, that, food is love, and how you love your child and how you feed your child, very important. And I know it's the holidays. It's a bad time to be talking about it, right? But give it 2 weeks. Everybody will have all these New Year's resolutions. But I just want you to make a note for yourself. If there was one thing that you felt like you wanted to change, what would be the next action? I'm encouraging you to reduce the pesticides, but you might be way past that. But what is the thing? And it could be making an appointment to see if your child has any allergies. It could be just stopping buying the thing that your child is absolutely obsessed with and saying, oh, they don't have it at the store this time, and for a week, and seeing what happens. Because if your child is obsessed with a certain food, chances are that it's not good for them. I'm going to be honest here and say that recently I have been obsessed with, there is a type of kimbap that they make at Trader Joe's, and I've been obsessed with it. And then I heard myself say, oh, if you're obsessed with something, it probably isn't good for you. And so I've stopped eating it. Because I don't know, it's very healthy. But I'm obsessed with it. I think it's too high in sodium for me is the problem. So try to reduce that. If your child is only eating one color, let's try to introduce another color, right? But make a note for yourself in the margin about what's the one action that you might want to take for diet. It may not end up being the most important thing, but let's put it there because for some of you, it might be the most important thing. All right, let's move on to the next one because we've got a lot to cover. Sleep. Oh my goodness. Here are the questions. How are your child's sleep habits? Are there nighttime, and I've spelt it wrong, nighttime sleep related issues? And is anyone else's sleep affected by your child's sleep issues? Okay, let's talk turkey here. Sleep is critical. Your brain doesn't have time to heal if you don't get time to sleep. And we have a lot of kids that we're seeing, there's a lot of inflammation in the brain. Critical that we make sure that they get enough rest. And for kiddos, that really is probably upwards of 8-9 hours. Like I'm not a doctor, but I hear doctors saying that kids sometimes need 10 hours of sleep. Now, if your kiddo is over the age of 3 and the most intense time that they're sleeping is during the nap, we got to talk about that. Because there's a certain amount of things that your child needs to be doing during the awake hours during the day to be able to learn and have the capacity to take on the things that their brain should be learning at the age of 3. And a lot of times in our community, what happens is kids aren't sleeping at night, but they get that power sleep during the day. And it's the hardest thing in the world for parents to flip that script. But when you need them to sleep is when it's dark. It's going to help them and their body and their rhythm if they are sleeping when it is dark. And they need to be awake during those awake hours and asleep during those dark hours. And that's going to help you too. Because guess what? This is a long journey in which you're going to be supporting your child as you want to, as you should. And you cannot do that if you are constantly sleep deprived. Now, it is true that adults don't need as much sleep, although I think we start returning to it as we get older, that we need more sleep. But if you are functioning, every week, every day, I talk to parents who are functioning on 4 hours or less of sleep. And I'm just going to say to you, that is a recipe for disaster. That's a recipe for health issues. That's a recipe for being in a car accident. Your reaction times are going to be slower. It's not an equation that works. And if that is you, that your child is not sleeping and you're not getting sleep, I want you to mark down in the margin here the next action that you can take. Because we've got to get this cart moving in the right direction. When we started therapies, intensive therapies, and we're going to talk about those in a minute, I remember that one of the big 3 things that I made a list of was that my son wasn't sleeping through the night. But one of the other big things was that he was hitting his head on the kitchen floor. And I was worried that he was going to cause brain damage. And Card came back to me and said, we're going to work on the sleep thing first. And I was kind of miffed. I was like, guys, we really need to work on the head banging. And they said, yes, but if you, Shannon, have not had enough rest, we won't be able to do it effectively. And that ticked me off, but it made sense, right? If you're wanting to help and support your child, we got to start with their sleep and your sleep before we're going to get to the good stuff. And if you think that you're going to be able to do it on 4 hours, my friend, I'm just going to tell you that I've seen that story play out and it doesn't have a good ending. It has a very bad ending. So we got to prioritize the sleep. And sometimes that means calling in other people and saying, I need for a relative or a friend to come and sleep at my house for 3 nights because I'm going to prioritize me getting sleep at night. And if my child gets up 4 times in the middle of the night, I'm not going to respond to it. So that I will have 4 days of sleep so that then I can respond to it. Because listen, in the middle of the night when we're tired and our child is up, we'll give them anything, right? We'll give them the car keys if they just go back to sleep. We're not functioning in our higher brain. So we've got to get some sleep, and then we've got to target the child getting some sleep. And there are lots, we've done lots of shows on this. But lots of things that we can do to make it so that your child will sleep. But sometimes we got to start with keeping them so busy during the day that nap thing, because if they're getting that power nap in the middle of the day, I'll just tell you, it's going to be hard to get them to sleep through the night. And then their circadian rhythm is going to be off. We got to start really good, clean sleep habits and start rituals about when they go to bed and how tired they are. Whoo, you might need some help, but this is critical. So if this is you, you might want to circle this one and be like, critical, gotta get to the sleep thing. Very important. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Language communication. For all of you that are watching, it is my assumption that your children are on the spectrum, which means that you are having some difficulties with language, right? And there is a spectrum, a huge one. But the first question that we want to ask is, can your child effectively communicate their wants and needs with you and others? Now, I know that some of you are going to say yes, but I want you to read that whole sentence. Can they effectively communicate their wants and needs with you and others? I've had a couple of really heartfelt questions recently with parents about this, where they've said to me, well, they communicate with me. I understand when they, and listen, that's brilliant parenting. You're paying attention to how your child communicates today, right? That they say, well, my child points and I know that what they want is the cheeseburger without the cheese. My child stamps their foot and I know that they want this, that, or the other thing. But nobody else understands that. And we're not setting them up for success if we don't make it so that they are able to communicate their wants and needs with pretty much the world. So sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard for a parent to say, okay, I gotta push them a little bit to be able to communicate in a way that other people, because you're kind of giving up this moment where you have this synergy, this communication with your child, but it is for their greater good, right? The other question is, can your child communicate their, I can't see it, Chris, can you full screen it again? My bad. Can you try to effectively communicate when they need help? That's what it was. So this is critical. I would love to sit here and say to all of us that we are going to live forever. Wouldn't that be the wish that every parent would have, that we could live forever and be there to help support our child and to translate and to tell people when our child has needs? But it's not realistic. We are not going to be here forever. Plus, which we're not awake 24/7. And we can't be there every minute with our children. We just can't. It's not feasible. I know we like to tell ourselves we can, but you can't. There will be a moment where you'll have to go to the bathroom and you won't be there, and your child needs to be able to communicate if they need help. So if your child is not able to do these two things, what's the next action that we would take? What is the next thing that we can do? What's the next skill that we would work on for them to be able to do these things? And if you're not sure, don't worry, because we have some other therapies where they will help you to know what the next thing is to do. But let's identify what is the thing that they need to be able to do. Is it that they can communicate with you, but they can't communicate with the world? Let's give them a way to do that. If they aren't able to ask for help, let's teach them how and when and where to ask for help. We can do that. It's a big lesson, but we can tear it down into little itty bitty segments. But mark that in the corner. That's what's the next action that you need to take to help build your child's language communication. Okay, moving on to ABA, because of course. Now, I thought about this when I was making this PowerPoint, and the fact that, I know people say, well, ABA isn't for everyone. And I think that's true. I really do. I think that there are people who don't have access to good ABA. And I think that there are people who struggle with the steps, that they're highly creative and that there are steps involved with ABA, and I think that that's hard for them. But my question to you is, if there is something that is hard for you but that will help your child, wouldn't you do it? And I think it's critical. that if you want to help your child who is on the autism spectrum, that you understand what ABA is and how it works and how it creates progress. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go to an ABA provider. You may not have access to a good ABA provider, but you as a parent need to understand ABA. Now, for many of you, your child is already getting ABA, right? But for everyone, here's the question. Is your child making progress? Because with good ABA, every child makes progress. Is it at a different rate? And are there different things that they're learning? Yes. But if it's good ABA, your child will make progress. And if your child isn't making progress, we got to stop and go, what variable do we need to change? It's not your child's fault. There is no child who cannot make progress with ABA. Let me say that again. Let's crochet it into a pillow. There is no child, teen, or an adult who cannot make progress when it is good quality ABA. That is the truth. But sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes they need more opportunities to learn. Sometimes we need to teach it in a very specific way. And ABA is built to be that. It should never be cookie cutter. If you are in an ABA program and your child is not making progress, we want to immediately address that and say, what are we doing to change the variables so that this child is making progress? But number 2 is pretty important to me. It's a big question. Are you doing the proper number of hours, the right intensity? When I go and speak to BCBAs, I have a slide in my PowerPoint that it says, who voted intensity off of the island? All of the research that's been done on ABA is very clear that in order to teach something to someone, you need to give them lots of opportunities to learn. And that means time. And that translates to intensity. I am appalled that I am seeing all these ABA providers that are doing 8 and 10 hours worth of therapy with kids who are under the age of 6, and it makes me want to throw flamethrowers because there's no research to support that being what is effective. That would be like your doctor saying, oh, let me give you a prescription for penicillin. Here's 1 pill. Take it, and then that'll fix it, when they know perfectly well that there's no research that has shown that 1 penicillin pill will take care of what you have that ails you. It's a series of pills over a series of days. And that's what's effective. And by the way, for penicillin, it's for very specific things, and it's a different number of days than amoxicillin, but there's a prescription. And when you're teaching things to children, it takes a certain number of hours. And when it's children on the spectrum, there's the potential for it to take even more hours. They need more opportunity to try it. So if you are getting too low of an intensity, it literally could be the thing that's preventing your child from having success. So I ask you, and there's action that you can take, and it could be that the prescription that you got was too low, or it could be that your ABA provider doesn't have the staff. But if you're doing too low intensity, you will not get the same result. This is, science shows this on a regular basis with all kinds of things. It's very true of ABA. I need you to full screen it again, Chris. Are they learning meaningful things? I just could beat my head against a wall that I'm hearing that sometimes parents are saying, well, we stopped doing ABA because, they were teaching stuff that didn't make any sense. Please ask yourself as a parent, is your child learning meaningful things? And if they're not, have a meeting with your ABA provider and say, why are you teaching them that? I want my child to know how to do this. Let's work on this. It is your health care. Be clear with them about what you want to teach. Now, sometimes they'll say to you, yes, we want to teach that too, but first we have to teach this skill. That's totally fine, right? But have them show you the path to the skill that you want. Make them explain what they're doing so that you understand, because if it's not meaningful for your child, I put this picture in there deliberately because this shows a child and they're learning how to crack an egg. Well, that's a useful skill for most people, not everybody, but it needs to be meaningful. If they're trying to teach your 4-year-old trigonometry, we would all cry foul, right? Because that's not meaningful to a 4-year-old, not a typical 4-year-old. But then let's look at number 4 here. Is it fun and fair? If it's not, you don't have good ABA. People ask me all the time, what are the hallmarks of good ABA? It's got to be fun and it's got to be fair and it's got to be meaningful to them and they got to be making progress. And if it's not those things, it's not good ABA, my friends. It's some schlocky crap people are calling ABA. And listen, you want to involve me? I can't even believe a friend asked me to come to a meeting with her ABA provider a few months ago, and it really put me in a spin, you guys. Really put me in a spin because it gave me a front row seat of some of the things that you guys have been saying to me over the years about crappy ABA. And there was a BCBA, and I said, please talk to me about why this child has a 10-hour prescription. And she sat there and said to me, because that is what has been found to be effective. And I couldn't stop myself. I said, no, no, it hasn't. No, it hasn't. And she said, yes, she's a BCBA. I really need to report her. And I said, tell me a study. You're quoting that to this parent. Tell me a study. Show me one study. And she said, well, I don't really know. And I said, I'll tell you why you don't know, because there isn't one. There's a study that shows very particularly that in that age range, the 10 hours is not effective. Why are you telling this lie to this parent? There's bad ABA out there, my friends. We all need to be really diligent. Huma, I'm so glad you're here with us from Pakistan. I'll go back in the description and I'll put the checklist. And I'm happy to, if you send me your email, I'll tell you what would be better. Send me your email and I'll send you the PowerPoint. And then you'll be able to look at it, right? So my email is Shannon at autism-live.com. Happy to share the PowerPoint with you. Okay? All right. So get yourself good ABA. Be diligent and notice these things. If it's not fun and fair, and if you're not making progress, something's wrong. Go to your ABA provider and say something's wrong, we're not making the progress, and work it through with them, or get a new ABA provider, because they are wasting your time and your child's time. And we don't have room for that, do we? All right. Moving on. Adaptive skills. Okay, this is really important. What's the next skill that your child needs to learn for them to be independent? It could be toileting. It could be wiping their butts better. It could be learning how to work their smartphone. What is the next skill towards independence? Is it that they need to learn how to clip their own nails? Is it that they need to learn how to wash their hair in the shower? There's such a gamut and a spectrum, but what's the next skill? What life skill would help your child the most right now? What would help them to gain independence? For some kiddos, I remember the mom who said, when we live upstairs in a condo, and everything has to slow down because she has to go step up, step up, step up, step up. And when you're bringing groceries upstairs, it's just, and she said it would be life-changing if she could go foot over foot up the stairs, just life-changing. And so they targeted that. And within a couple of weeks, it was during the summer, within a couple of weeks, she was going foot over foot. And I'll tell you what, it was life-changing. It was life-changing for that young girl, but it was life-changing for that mom because she realized, she can learn things like that and her life can get better and she can be more independent. So we can't poo-poo the adaptive skills. What's the next skill for independence? And you can see it on their faces when you teach them something that allows them to be independent. Ooh, they love it. They love it. All right, moving on. School. Oh, okay. Here's some questions for you. Is your child ready for school? Your child may already be in school, but let's ask the question. Is your child ready for school? And if they're not, what are we doing to get them ready? School is tough. School is tough. You need to be able to communicate a certain amount for your self-preservation, right? And you need to have a certain amount of social skills to be able to really be able to get the benefit out of school. So first, is the child ready? And if they're not, then what do we need to do to get them ready? If they are already in school, do they have the right placement? Are they in the right classroom with the right teacher? And last but certainly not least, do they have the right services to support them? Do you know right now, the law of the land is that your child is entitled, if they have an autism diagnosis, they are entitled to an IEP. At the very least, they are entitled to a review for an IEP. And I know that some of you are being told that your child doesn't have an educational need and so that they're being refused the IEP. And I don't want you to let that go, because your child has to, if they have an autism diagnosis, they are entitled to an IEP. You just have to be persistent in saying, well, no, but here is where the deficit is. And they're going to try to say to you that they don't have a deficit educationally, but you need to remind them that in the language, it says that they have to be being prepared for their life after school, and that is social. So, and we don't start that when they're 16, that we start that when they start school. So your child is entitled to an IEP, but it's just a piece of paper if nobody's implementing it, right? And if the piece of paper doesn't say the right things and there isn't the right support, then are we really serving the child? I will tell you that there's a substantial amount of time that your child will spend in school. So making sure that they have the right placement, that they have the right supports, and that that's written into the document, and that you're following that, and that the people working with them are following that, critical. Because that's sometimes 6, 7, 8 hours a day that your child is there. And if they are not benefiting from it, then it is a waste of their time and sometimes can even be harmful to them, that they're not learning and progressing and potentially being bullied. So what's the next action you need to take at school? Do you need to call for an IEP meeting? Do you need to, get help with an attorney or an advocate? What's the next action? Put that in the column. I know our list is building. We're not going to do everything, but we're going to see what's most important here. Okay, next one. Additional services, things like speech, OT, recreational therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, biomedical treatment, social skills, etc., etc., etc. I include in this enrichment skills. If there's something that your child loves, just loves, like, your child loves putting things together, doing things like I was showing my Lux blocks later. I just want to tell you, you need to sign them up, find your local library that has a robotics program. Get your child involved in things that they love. And don't have it just be at home, have it be a social thing too. They love to build, get them involved in that. I used to take my son every Friday when he was in at the end of not preschool, elementary school and the beginning of junior high. At our local library, they had a Minecraft club, and they had 20 computers, and the first 20 kids that got there, they got to do a mission in Minecraft. That was so good for him, social skills wise. So I include those kinds of things that I call enrichment things, that are the fun things that they can be trying out those skills. So, what on this list is serving your child? What don't you have? What do you need to fight for? Put it in the side column. Like if there's something that your heart's desire that you've been wanting your kid to do, or that you feel like they're not getting enough, what's the next action that needs to be taken care of in terms of additional services? I love the mom. Listen, there's a whole lot of people who poo-poo a lot of things, but if your child loves it, they're going to be more willing to learn. Sorry, but that's a basic, right? And there was the mom whose child was really struggling to do handwriting. And but the child loved horses, and everybody was saying, oh, don't do equine therapy, there's no research, blah 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 blah. But her child loved horses. Otherwise I would say, don't run out and do equine therapy. But the child loves horses, and guess what? When you're sitting on a horse, you have to work on your core strength. You have to sit up or you fall off. It's just that simple. Well, what they discovered was that the child didn't have enough core strength, so that when he was doing his handwriting, he was hunched over, he couldn't see it. They got him on the horse, he started sitting up through the core muscles, and suddenly the handwriting got easier. Hello. And he loved it, right? That's the key. So what do you need to do to take action for additional services? We still have many more to go. Let's keep going. The fun and fair factor. You got to ask yourself, is your child's day fun? Is your child's day fair? Often this is the first question I ask when parents reach out to me and they say, we're just having a terrible time, Shannon. I don't know what to do. And I say, tell me about this child. Tell me about what they love. Tell me about what their day looks like. And I, at some point, will say, where is it fair? So, they'll say to me, okay, so the child wakes up and we have breakfast and it's, it's just torture that like to get them to sit and to eat whatever it is that they're eating. They don't want to do that. They want to be someplace else. They want to be doing something else. And then I have to get them in the car and I got to motor them in the car and they're kicking and screaming and getting in the car. And we go, to this place where I drop them off where they don't want to be, the preschool. And then the preschool calls me and says, they hit somebody, you got to come get them. And then I got to drag them to do the grocery shopping. And then, it's time to take the bath and then it's time to go to bed. And I hear all that because that's what our days are like sometimes as parents. But we got to ask ourselves the question, where is that fun for the kid? Where did the kid have any joy? Where was it about what their agenda is and what they want to do? Because they're people. They're people. And we can tweak little things. Like we get up in the morning and what's our routine in the morning and how can we make that fun? And how can we make it fair? We're making them brush their teeth. Well, let's get the toothbrush that sings the song that they like. And let's get the flavored toothbrush, try to do it naturally. But, or let's do, crazy, silly things while they're brushing their teeth. Let's make it fun and let's make it fair. And then we're having breakfast. Well, what are we having? Can we have something that's enjoyable or can we play a game with it? I don't know. But how is it fun and fair? And we're getting in the car. Well, to go where? And what are we going to do in the car? And is there something fun for them to do in the car? Do I want our kids to be stuck on iPads all the time and have their heads on a screen? No. But if we have to drive an hour to get someplace, we have to do something to make it fun and fair. And by the way, there are great apps that you can be doing that your child can be learning language. They think they're playing a game. Let's just be choosy about what they're playing, right? So it's got to be fun and fair. And if you have a child who is acting out a lot, let's start there. How is it fair for them? Think about teenagers. I remember being a teenager. Do you remember being a teenager? It all felt like it wasn't fair. It was like I was on somebody else's agenda and had to do other things and I was miserable. They've got to have time when they have control over what's happening and they get to vote and say, I would like for it to be this way, or I'll do this, but then I get to do that. Don't we do that for ourselves as adults? Let's help our children and our teens to be able to do that. It's got to be fun and fair. Otherwise, what's the point? Let's find the joy and help them to find the joy. Critical, no matter what you're doing, it has to be fun and fair. Okay, onward and upward. Next one, social growth. Does your child have and keep friends? And if they don't, we've got to mark this as one of the things that potentially is on our list that we can address. There's great social skills. Can I just say, I'm a huge fan of the Peers program at UCLA that you guys can do online, and they have it in all different age groups now. And it's great for your kids, and they will learn social skills. Let's not just hope that they get the social skills. Let's help them to learn social skills and put them in circumstances where they can be successful and help them through that. On to the next one, because we're running out of time here. The anxiety thing. Oh my gosh, the anxiety thing. Does your child show signs of anxiety? I will tell you, this is the number one that often parents, they're like, yeah, but I don't know what to do about it. But I'm just going to ask you again, if there was one thing you could do, what would it? Like, first of all, making it fun and fair has the potential for it to, be helpful, but sometimes it's a biomedical thing. Like, do you need to go to the doctor? Do you need a prescription? How big is the anxiety? And is it just around certain things? Is there a way that we can reduce the anxiety even for a period of time? So ask yourself, what is the next action that you need to take about anxiety? I see, Esther, you've got questions. I'm going to get to it in just a second. On to the next one, the money thing. Okay, do you have concerns about money in your life or in your child's treatment? Because it could be either or. Do you have concerns about paying for therapies? Are there things that you're wanting to pay for your child that are just not there right now, and it's kind of eating your stomach line. Because I want to ask you, is there an action that you can be taking about that? We've talked before on the show about grants that you can apply for, uh, different places where there is the potential for funding. Sometimes it's that you got to make the phone call to your insurance company, or you have to call your ABA provider and say, we're struggling with the copay. Is there anything that I'm eligible for that sometimes they're aware of? What's the next action you need to take to reduce your anxiety about money? Is there somebody you need to ask a question? Is it me? Do you need to send an email to me and say, Shannon, here's where we're at. Here's what I'm worried about. What's available to me? We've done shows about it before, but maybe the next action you need to do is email me. But let's put it on the list as a potential of things that we're going to address, because we're getting to where we're going to prioritize it. So on to the next one, which might be, we got to get this one in, taking care of the caretaker. Do you prioritize your own care? I just heard the world say no. Right? I struggle with this. But you know what? If we're not there to take care of them, then, it's not going to matter, right? We got to prioritize our own care. And more than anything, I feel this profoundly. The one thing I wish that I'd done better, there's many things I wish I did better, but the top one is that I wish that I had modeled more self-care in front of my child, because I see now that he does what I did in front of him. I just watched him go through a very difficult period of time. It was finals, but he just had so many assignments, and I watched him do things that I do when I have a lot of things to do. And some of them are great. Some of them are not great. And some of them I was saying, you should do this. And he was calling me out and saying, I don't see you do that. Right? If we don't model it for our children, how will they learn it? So if you won't prioritize your self-care for yourself, you must prioritize it so that your child sees it. And they do, and they adopt your methods of self-care. So prioritize it. You want to be here. Okay, I think the next one is let's prioritize. Okay, so now you want to go back down all the different slides, and what you said was the next action that you want to take. You want to make a list, and you want to go through, and sometimes it takes several passes to do it, but you want to assign a number value next to each one of them. 1 to whatever, and prioritize 1 being the most important. And you might find that it takes you 3 times that you go, no, this one is ahead of this one, and really think about it. Then I want you to take the top 3 to 5. You can't do it all, right? And you can put the list on the refrigerator to deal with later on, but let's take the top 3 to 5 and let's make a timeline for it. So if, for instance, you said, okay, I got a call for an emergency IEP. That was one of your things. And you said, and I really need to work on the sleep issue. So the next action that I can take is that I'm going to start to keep them busy during the day so that we don't have a nap, right? You put that there. And let's say that the third one was that you got to make a phone call and talk with your ABA providers about what's happening, right? So, and those were your top 3. You want to give yourself a timeline of when you're going to do that, and take at least 1 action every day. I'm not telling you to take 3 actions today. I'm not telling you to solve it today. 1 action today. And if you've prioritized 3 things, then 1 action today, 1 tomorrow. You'll find that sometimes it snowballs into more actions, but you're not required to do that. 1 action a day. 1 action a day. So it might be that today you're just reducing the pesticide in your child's diet today, right? It's really helpful to, on your timeline, think about it and go, okay, so I said that I want to improve my child's diet and reduce the pesticide. What am I doing today? Just for today, we're going to have less pesticide. Half the things we do are going to be with no pesticide. The others we'll weather the storm, right? But make yourself a timeline for by the time we're sitting here a year from now that you've eliminated as much pesticide as you possibly can. And then you think backwards about, okay, so by September of 2025, I want to be at 75%. And by June, I want to be at 50%. And by April, I want to be at 30% less pesticide. And then check in with yourself. That's how we get something done. But it starts with looking at the list and saying, what's the next action? Prioritizing what of all the actions that you need to take, what's the most important, and doing one thing today. But if you have the time on the 3, timeline it out, and also say to yourself, and how will that translate into our lives being better? I can tell you, if it's the pesticide thing, your child will focus better. It may take a couple of months, but they will, and you'll be like, woohoo. Esther wants to know, Shannon, how do I get the school to communicate with me on a daily or at least weekly basis? You ask them for a communication log, and you tell them what you need, and you listen to them, and you ask, what can you do? And you ask them to assign that to someone and to write it in to the IEP that you have a communication log. Now, it should already be written into the IEP that you have benchmarks, and that every 3 months you get benchmarks on all the IEP goals. That should already be written in there. If it's not, make sure that that's written in there, and make sure that they're doing that. They're in non-compliance if they're not doing that. But you can absolutely request a communication log. Now, if you see that they're being reticent to it, I would ask for an IEP meeting, and I would look at any behavior. I'm going to give you the example that for us, there were a bunch of different things that we were working on at school that we identified they did a functional behavior assessment. There were behaviors that we wanted to increase, behaviors we wanted to decrease. And so we said, let us be a part of a token economy system for the child. And this became our communication log. They didn't even realize it was. But we said that, so we had this chart. It was just a little piece of plastic that was laminated. That's the word that I want, with little Velcro stickers on it. And when he did certain things during the morning, he got a certain number of stars. And then at lunch, he got stars. And in the afternoon, he got stars. And if it all added up to a certain number of stars, then that meant that he got a gold star for the day, and that we had made mommy money and daddy dollars. That they looked like Monopoly money, but they had pictures of my husband and I in a little craft project. And they were different colors. And the deal was that if he got, I think it was 47, it was a random number, but if he got 47 of those, on any day that he had 47 of those, we would go to Disneyland. We would pick him up from school and we would go to Disneyland. And we held true to that. But what ended up happening with that is that he would come out to greet me at the end of the school day, and he would have his little chart that would show how many stars he got in the morning, how many stars he got in during lunch, and how many stars he got in the afternoon. And if I saw that he had enough and he had the gold star, then they would give him, and I would take and I would go, oh, let's put this in your bank, right? But what it did was it communicated to me how the day was going. And so if I saw that he didn't, I would say what happened in the morning that he didn't have the stars, and we would have a little bit of a conversation. And that's how I did it. But I know lots of parents that there just is a notebook that goes back and forth, that goes in your child's backpack, and there's an expectation that the aide or the teacher will write in it, and you tell them, does it need to be daily or does it need to be weekly? And I would start daily and then see what happens. But I would also, and I know you got a precious little baby at home, but you really want to be volunteering at this school. You need to get your face in there, and you need to see firsthand what's happening. And they're not going to want to let you in because they know you're not happy, right? But the teacher at some point, somebody won't turn down the help. I started out in the copy room. I was nowhere near the classroom, and I was like, oh, this isn't working. But I wheedled my way into that classroom. You need to get in there. Because I see you say you have no idea what's happening at school. Who's the room mother? And I would start with her and say, can I be your assistant? Sometime this week they're going to have the holiday party, and you want to say, oh, I'd like to donate the whatever. And so can I please be at the holiday party? And wheedle your way in there. You will learn so much, so very much. That's the way to get in there. And I want you to remember that you have the ability of having other people go in and observe too. However much they have observed your child at school, you have the ability to bring an expert in to observe your child exactly that amount of time. They're going to say that you only get 20 minutes at a time, but the truth of the matter is, however much they have observed your child, you get that time too. Autism Journey with Elijah, good morning. She says, agreed. We used to do that daily notes, but make sure it's not all bad. Yeah, for sure. They love to do that. I made a fuss about it and changed to positive, and then it was so much fuss. We pulled my son out of private to a private homeschool. Much better for us. Yeah, it's rough. It's hard. I respect so much that you did that, because if it's not working, it's like playing chicken, right? You're not forced to send your child to school. You can homeschool them. I don't think it's the best choice for a lot of our kids. For my child, I knew that it wasn't, because he doesn't want to learn from me. Still, he's an adult. He doesn't want to learn from me. And I'll be honest, I needed the break of him going to school. Sometimes it was more work for me because I was having to be on them to get them to do whatever, but that wasn't every year. And when it was, we moved schools and put him in a different school. So it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. I can't even tell you. I expected when he was graduating from high school, and the very last IEP meeting that we ever went to, and he closed his IEP, everybody talked to me about how much peace and just like, oh, it's over and I don't have to deal with this anymore. I did not experience it that way, because we were on to college, right? And everybody says, oh my gosh, what are you going to do? Because my son supposedly, fingers crossed, is graduating from college in May. And I don't see where it ends. Like, I'm just going to say that with love. I don't see where it ends, because then, it's going to be, especially for the profession he's going in, because he's a screenwriter, it's always going to be like, what's the next job, and so on and so forth. I don't know that it ever ends. I think that we just worry about our kids endlessly. But I don't miss dealing with school. I don't miss it. I really don't miss going to IEP meetings at all. And I don't miss dealing with people who think that they know how to deal with autism when they don't. At all. But I absolutely enjoy being a part of a force with parents to get what your child needs. That I do enjoy. That fulfills me. Autism Journey with Elijah says, oh boy, we have days, believe me, but I find out that structure and visual schedule helps a lot. We're working through it. I am not giving up, and he finally gets that part in win for both of us. I love that. And you're going to blink and he is going to be done with school, because it goes so fast. And I just respect and admire and love the good fight that both of you are fighting to help your child to learn and to grow. It is just, excuse me, it's admirable. And you're always going to know, pardon me, that you have that you fought for your child. So we've gone way over, but we're back tomorrow, I'm told, with Ask Dr. Doreen. I hope that that's true. And because it will be the last Ask Dr. Doreen of the year. So I hope that is absolutely true. Somebody wrote in and said, there is no reason why anyone else shouldn't. And I assume, wait, I missed part. She said, I'm African-American born with autism and graduated high school and going to college. That's what you were saying. There is no reason why anyone else shouldn't. Well, and I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. And, but I will say that it's not everybody's desire. That I know many young people on and off the spectrum that the college is not on their wish list, right? But I agree with you that for anybody who wants to, they absolutely should be able to do that. Absolutely. But there are people, I'm sure I'm sure you have experienced in your lifetime, that put a label on things and decide for people what they're capable of. We don't believe in that here. We believe in letting people reveal what they want, who they are, and where they're going, and celebrating the individual, helping people when they need support, and celebrating all the things that they can do. That's where we're at. So I love your name, Buoyancy, because isn't that like, look at how buoyant you are. That's a wonderful thing. Thank you for joining us here at the end. All right, you guys, we got to end the stream, but I hope you'll be back with us tomorrow, and we'll be talking about more toys tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.